Morphology. Phonology and morphology are important in order to understand language, in order to understand how language functions. So let's first understand what is phonology, and then we are going to discuss morphology in detail. Phonology is the study of speech sounds and how they change depending on certain situations or placements in syllable, words and sentences. In English, you must have noticed that the sound of S and C differ from word to word. C's is written as S-E-I-Z-E, but then the sound is of C and not of S. This particular type of sound and the study of sounds is known as phonology. Now in phonology comes a word called phoneme, P-H-O-N-E-M-E. Phoneme is the unit of sound in speech. That means whenever you are saying a word, the small unit of sound in that word, the smallest unit of sound in a speech is known as phoneme. For example, if you look at the word bat, these are two sounds. B stands for B. So the sound B of B is phoneme, and it is written with two slash. One slash, then in middle you write B, and then you put one more slash. This B written in between of two slash is going to tell us that it's a phoneme. Now phoneme doesn't have any inherent meaning of itself, but when you put phonemes together, they can make words. So if you look at any word, it is going to have different sounds, vowel sounds and consonant sounds. So these are phonemes. If you look at a word like rapid, three sounds are there, Okay, now these three sounds are three phonemes. Ra in itself doesn't make any meaning. But when you put ra with other phonemes, you are going to make a word rapid, which contains a meaning. So phonetics is about studying sounds. क्या sound है और सबसे smallest unit of sound is a phoneme. Every word is going to have number of phonemes. If you remember when I was talking about rhetorics and prosody, I discussed syllables, which is the smallest unit of word. Syllables, okay. Now if I say the word rapid, it is going to have two syllables, okay. Rapid. If you look at phonetic structure of rapid, it is going to have three phonemes, rapid. But if you look at the alphabets in rapid, it is having 5 alphabets. So this is how you study a word. Syllables is about dividing the word and seeing how the words are pronounced. So rapid, it is pronounced in to go, rapid, okay. Now phonetics is about the smallest unit of speech, so smallest unit of sound. Now there are a number of phonetic symbols in English language. If you open any dictionary in your mobile, you will find that just beside the word, they write certain symbols which represent the phonetic structure of the word. And this phonetic structure is going to tell you how the word is pronounced. So there are words like cow. Now the pronunciation is very different from how it is written. Okay. Phonetics is even more important when it comes to words having silent letters like night, K-N-I-G-H-T. Now K is silent. So when you write night in phonetic symbols, you will see that it begins with N. Okay, because pronunciation में न का sound आ रहा है, K का sound नहीं आ रहा. Okay, so phonetics is that branch of linguistics which is going to study the speech plus understand that phonetics involves a lot of phonetic symbols. I'm giving you a table below this audio lecture where you can see the phonetic symbol and you can see how words in English language are going to be spoken in a different way. So spellings are different, but the way it is pronounced is going to change. And this pronunciation can only be understood if you have fine understanding of phonetics. So this is phonetics. I've told you what is phoneme. Phoneme is the unit of sound in speech. Now it's time to look at morphology. We have known phonology, now it's time to understand what is morphology. From linguistic perspective, we can define morphology as the study of language parts and how those parts interact. Now we all know that in English language there are different types of words. Nouns, adjectives, adverb, and all these words, they are known as different parts of language. Okay, there are certain words which come under nouns. The noun is one part of speech. Then there is another part of speech which is adjective or adverb or verb. So morphology deals with the study of language parts. When we look at the smallest grammatical unit in English, we are actually looking at a morpheme. Just like phoneme is the smallest unit of sound in speech, similarly, morpheme is the smallest grammatical unit. A morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of language, making it different from a word. A word can have different morphemes. For example, the word reusable, it has got 3 morphemes. Reusable. Okay, there are 3 words which make sense. So when you divide a word into smallest unit, meaningful unit, that is called morpheme. Understand, phoneme doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have any inherent meaning of itself. The word "b," the letter "b," doesn't have a meaning in itself. But the word able has a meaning in itself. That is why morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of language. We can understand this word when we divide it in different sections. We break the word down into different morphemes. So there is re, which is a prefix. Then there is use, which is the action word. And then we have a suffix, which is able. So you can see how each component is meaningful even though we have broken the word. Now morphemes can be of 2 types. One is free morpheme and the other one is bound morpheme. A free morpheme is one word which can function independently as a word. For example, if you look at the word plant, you can break the word plant, PL one and ANT is another. But PL doesn't make any sense. Therefore, you can see that the word plant cannot be broken, because you can only break a word if all the parts of the words make sense. So, plant is a free morpheme. You can add ed after plant and you can see how the word changes. So plant is one word. If I add ed, which is a suffix, you will see that the word changes to planted. Okay, now plant is a free morpheme. Why? Because it can function independently as a word. ed cannot function independently. ed का अपने आप में कोई मतलब नहीं है. Plant अपने आप में एक word है. That is why it's a free morpheme. Okay, there are a lot of other free morpheme examples. For example, the word bird, it's a free morpheme. Okay, because it makes sense in its own and it cannot be broken down any further. The other part of morpheme is bound morpheme. Bound morpheme is one that must be attached to another morpheme in order to form a word. So if you look at any suffix and prefix, prefix is something which comes before a word and suffix is something which comes after a word. So a free morpheme because it makes sense in its own. अगर आप change कहीं भी लिखते हो तो it makes a sense. But non अपने आप में sense नहीं बनाता unless and until it is attached to another word. Therefore, we can see that non is a bound morpheme. Okay. Now, in order to understand it better, I would like you to understand the difference between phonemes and graphemes. Phonemes. Phonemes is smallest unit of grammar recognizable by sound. Phoneme, the smallest unit of sound in speech is phoneme. What is grapheme? Graphemes. Grapheme is smallest unit of written language. Okay, smallest unit of written language. जब आप लिखते हो तो उसमें सबसे smallest unit क्या होता है? That is called grapheme. Okay, now in order to understand free and bound morpheme, let's take example of a word. The word is non-perishable. Now in this word, there are three morphemes. Non-perishable. Non and able. They both are prefix and suffix, whereas perish is the main word. So, if you divide this word, you will find that non-perishable is going to have a prefix that is non, then perish, which is the base morpheme, and then we have able, which is a suffix. So, non and able both are called affix. Affix can be of two types, suffix and prefix. Affix is a morpheme which is attached either prior to or following a base word. That means या तो पहले या word के बाद में add करके उसका meaning change कर देते हैं. That is an affix. So any affix is going to be a bound morpheme, whereas the main word is going to be a free morpheme. So अगर एक word independently मतलब रखता है, that is a free morpheme, whereas if the word has to be added to something in order to make a meaning, then it is a bound morpheme. A word which cannot exist independently, which cannot make a sense independently, that's a bound morpheme. Now there are two other types of morpheme. One is derivational morpheme and the other one is inflectional morpheme. Derivational morphemes are affixes which are added to a word and it changes the meaning or function of the word. For example, there's a word sad. I add ly to the word sad. It becomes sadly. Now sadly is an adverb, whereas sad is an adjective. Sad boy, sad is an adjective. But when I add an affix, which is in this case a suffix, that is ly, something which is added at the end of the word, changes the function of sad from adjective to adverb. This is derivational morpheme. Then we have inflectional morpheme. Inflectional morphemes are affixes which carry grammatical meaning. For example, there is a word cat. Now I add s to cat. So cat is a free morpheme. इसमें मैंने एक suffix add कर दिया, which is s. Now this suffix s is an inflectional morpheme because it doesn't change the meaning or function. It is actually carrying a grammatical meaning. So grammar के लिए अगर s use किया जा रहा है in order to make it plural, that is what we know as inflectional morpheme. They do not change the part of speech or meaning of the word. They function to ensure that the word is in the appropriate form so that the sentence is grammatically correct. There's a word sail. If I add ing to it, then it is going to become a continuous form verb, sailing. Okay, so this sailing is an inflectional morpheme. Derivational morpheme is any word, any affix which is added which changes the function or meaning of the word. If you are adding anything and it changes the meaning of the word. Perish, perishable. Now, able add करने से perishable, meaning बदल गया word का. But inflectional morpheme is जिसमें आप grammatically ठीक करने के लिए लगा रहे हो, ses लगा रहे हो, ed लगा रहे हो, ing लगा रहे हो, जिससे बस grammar उस word का मतलब नहीं बदल रहा. Cat and catch both mean the same thing, but सिर्फ grammatically appropriate के लिए आप एक s add कर रहे हो या आप es add कर रहे हो कहीं पे. In that case, that's an inflectional morpheme. So we've looked at phonology and morphology. Phonology के अंदर हमने पढ़ा what is a phoneme. In morphology, we looked at what is a morpheme, what is a grapheme, and we looked at different types of morpheme. bound morpheme, free morpheme.